We're going to start today working on prevention methods. Here are the objectives. First, identify a variety of security prevention methods. Second, compare and contrast common prevention methods to aid in physical and digital security. Third, explain several ways that clients can prevent security threats on their own. And fourth, explain the principle of least privilege. Okay, prevention methods. All right. Many of the security issues that plague networks today can be solved through the implementation of basic security elements. Some of those prevention methods are the following. First, we have physical security. This is physical elements that can be added to an environment to aid in securing it. Digital security, which focuses mostly on keeping harmful data or malware out of a system or network. User education and AUP, which is acceptable use policy. Document that specifies what users can and cannot do. And lastly, the principle of least privilege. Give users only the permissions they need to do their work and no more. Okay. These are some examples of physical security. Right. Okay, you may want to screenshot this. You're gonna see this again, I guarantee it, on a test, and just need to know for your knowledge base.
We say it often, and it is important that IT security does not stop at the computer itself.
Right.
Even though we are, charged with protecting the computers, physical security is a big part of that.
Right. Okay. All right, here's an example of physical security type. We're going into locked doors. You may think that this is a pretty obvious thing. It is, but it's still something that you have to consider in your position with being in the IT field. You can restrict access to your computers, your networks. That helps you keep those networks and computers secure also. So again, locked doors, one of the easiest ways to prevent people intent on creating problems for physically entering your environment is to lock doors and keep them out. Key aspect of access control involves physical barriers. The objective of a physical barrier is to prevent access to computers and network systems. The most effective physical barrier implementations is called a multiple barrier system. Okay. First barrier is the external entrance to the building, referred to as the perimeter. Second barrier is the entrance into the building and could rely on such items as ID badges to gain access. The third barrier is the entrance to the computer room itself. It could require fobs or keys. Each of these entrances can be individually secured, monitored, and protected with alarm systems. Okay. Second example, physical security is a man trap. Has anyone ever heard of a man trap? Hands? No idea what a man trap is. Okay, we're gonna get an idea here. Man trap is a series of two doors with a small room between them. The user is authenticated at the first door and then allowed into the room. At that point, additional verification will occur, and then the user is allowed through the second door. These doors are normally used only in very high security situations. Based on what we talked about yesterday, which form of security can this fight against? Talked about it yesterday. Maybe
Social
someone
engineering.
is, okay, what type of social engineering?
Was it phishing? No?
On a football team, we have a tailback. So we're probably talking about,
Oh, tailgate.
there you go. Good job. Very good job. Okay. And as you can see from the diagram, you've probably seen this. A person has to get to access to a room. They may put a key fob up to a door or use a key, and they are going to one section of a room, and then they may have to look at a camera or speak to a security person to be allowed through the other door on the other side. And only one person at a time is allowed through this series of doors. Okay. Okay. All right. Cable locks. Devices such as laptops come with a notch that you can attach a cable lock and lock the device to something solid. This may even be advisable on some desktop systems if the systems are vulnerable to theft and they contain sensitive data. Right. As we did discuss before, if you have a laptop, you probably do have a spot on your laptop where you can attach a cable lock to it, and you can secure it wherever you need to secure it. Okay. Preparing physical documents, passwords, and shredding. Companies normally generate a huge amount of paper, most of which eventually ends up in dumpsters or in recycle bins. Dumpsters may contain information that is highly sensitive in nature. In high security and government environments, sensitive papers should be either shredded or burned. And a lot of big companies, what you will find is they will have outside companies come in and actually collect their paper and actually either shred it on site, or they secure it and shred it and burn it at another location. It's very important to keep secure documents from the trash, because that's easy access for anybody that might want to do some harm to a company or just to gain personal information, that kind of thing. Even at your home, if you have an opportunity, you should shred your documents once you're done with them. Anything that has your personal identification, your social security numbers, or anything, your account numbers to your credit cards, your bank, you should probably shred all of that stuff. Okay. ID badges. ID badges can be any form of identification intended to differentiate the holder from everyone else. This can be as simple as a name badge or photo ID. All right, and that's usually another method of identification for security that can be used at your particular job to allow you either access to the building or access to secure areas. If you're not supposed to be in that area, your badge will not allow you access. Key fobs. Key fobs are embedded radio frequency circuits that fit on a set of keys and are used with physical access control systems. Right? All right, biometrics. Anyone know what biometrics is?
Fingerprints.
Chat.
Fingerprints or your fingerprints or your handprint,
Facial recognition.
Okay.
facial recognition.
Voice recognition, retinal scan.
Right. Good. Very good. Right. Biometric devices use physical characteristics to identify the user. Biometric systems include hand scanners, retinal scanners, and possibly soon DNA scanners. To gain access to resources, you must pass a physical screening process. With the passing of time, the definition of biometric is expanding from simply identifying physical attributes about a person to being able to describe patterns in their behavior. Recent advances have been made in the ability to authenticate someone based on the key pattern they use when entering their password. That's a little bit of what Kelly was talking about yesterday. Yes, Jessica.
At first, I thought you was playing, but I see it does says it here, and possibly soon DNA scanners. I'm mad
Yes.
ain't nobody say nothing. But what why? What field of work are you working? So they gonna bleed me every time I gotta log into work. I gotta
Well,
give
you
them
don't
a
necessarily
pint of
need
my
it. You don't necessarily need to do that to get DNA. I mean, you can do it from
No.
saliva swabs. There's all kinds of
Right.
stuff.
the
Yeah,
hair.
exactly.
Like what type of, I guess, place of employment would it be? A place of employment? Like, why would we even need that? Like, to me, I don't know, guys. I don't like it.
You
I
you probably have a 00 designation before your name, like 007.
okay, give me a
Something
vowel
along
or
those lines,
something,
you know?
because wow, that's, I mean, if you ain't the POTUS, like, what are we doing?
Well,
Yeah.
they're cataloging people right now. It happened in was it Europe?
Mhm.
The company that was doing all the tests, the COVID tests in Europe, in
They're keeping that
in the agreement that you signed when you did the thing, is they could use that DNA for other, science. And so
Yep.
that company got sold, and they essentially basically just cataloged all the
Oh, I
DNA
did
of
that.
people, everybody who took tests in Europe.
Wow.
And it's
The more you know.
unfortunately tied to your ID number, all that stuff. So they now know who goes with what DNA. So unfortunately, all that stuff is being databased and cataloged right now.
Yep. Go ahead, Karen.
You know, I have to put my crime scene spin on everything,
Yup.
Right.
but you know they have touch DNA too. I mean, you know, you can get DNA off of they've caught criminals using touch DNA
Did
and
skin cells.
the skin cells.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also with the biometrics, I wanted to know that like with the facial recognition, I was reading somewhere where they were using only like certain markers. It was
Mhm.
like out of just say 16, maybe 10 of the markers were actually used. And now that they were going to try to go to a more sophisticated to where they're trying to match every marker, like
Yeah.
say my daughter looks like me, she can actually use my
Mhm.
driver's license. She looks so much like me.
And
But-
that's happening with phones. You
Right.
see that with phones all the time, where children are able to unlock their parents' phones.
Right.
Each generation, it gets a little bit better, but you are right on point with that.
Yeah, because she can actually pass for me. Like, she's used my driver's license before I found out. And I'm like, really?
Yeah,
but
right?
yeah, but it's crazy because I'm saying, like, you know, this biometric thing is really getting sophisticated, especially if they're going to DNA, because I know, you know, it's crazy watching these crime scene shows, because it's like, man, it makes you want to walk around in walk around in saran wrap.
Yeah.
But the
And
same thing you're talking about with the facial recognition, Karen, also happens with fingerprints. Fingerprint recognition was only like 5 or 6 points for your phone to unlock it.
Really?
Yeah, same thing. They weren't looking
Wow.
at your whole fingerprint. They were looking at like 5 or 6 connection points. Same with your face. Early facial recognition, you could literally defeat with a picture of the person.
Yeah.
And now it actually requires you to move your face a little bit to prove it's a 3-dimensional image. And they use, like you said, 6 to 10 points of reference in order to determine. So somebody looks similar but not exact to you. Like my youngest son probably can open my phone if I use facial recognition. I have all that stuff turned off. I only use passcode entry, but you're absolutely correct. In each generation, it's becoming more intense. Like probably the next generation, they'll use 20 points versus 6 to 10. And the same thing's happening with fingerprint and stuff like that. And DNA, it'll probably be like 3 to 5 markers, because that's something they could check quick.
Yeah.
And then it will get more sophisticated as time goes on and more intrusive, unfortunately.
Because I'm seeing what this is saying, the attributes about a person to being able to describe patterns in their behavior. You know, that would make it another layer of security, because you can have a person that's actually being kidnapped and used for their I'm going off on my crime scene stuff now, but that's being kidnapped and being used to gain entry to a place. But if their behavior is off, that would throw it off too. So that makes sense.
Well, But like earlier versions of facial recognition, you could hold up to somebody's face when they're sleeping and get into their phone. Now it actually requires their eyes to be open and them actually paying attention for it to unlock. So like they're trying to improve upon that. And the behavioral part gets into like how you sign your name, how do you type things out? Because it, like we were talking about yesterday, you have those micro hesitations in between punching these things, like, you know, between like me typing like a P and an H in my last name, I might hesitate for, you know, 15 micros, you know, like, you know, nanoseconds or something like that. And then when I go to the I, it's like a very fluid. So they'll use that almost like a signature of me because of how I type, which is why sometimes if you're typing into like a bank account or something like that, and you type one-handed, it might deny you, even though you've put your password in correctly, because the behavior of how you type changed because you went from two hands to one.
Mhm.
So stuff like that is becoming more common.
All right. Okay. All right. RFID badge. Radio frequency identification is a wireless, no contact technology used with badges or cards and their accompanying reader. The reader is connected to the workstation and validates against the security system. This increases the security of the authentication process because you must be in physical possession of the smart card to use the resources. Sorry. Of course, if the card is lost or stolen, the person who finds the card can access the resources it allows. So RFID badges have their good points and their bad points, and the worst of all is that if it's lost, it can still be used, and that's not very good. So probably in that situation, if a badge is lost, you should report it immediately so that badge can be deactivated, right? Smart card. Smart card is a type of badge or card that gives access to resources, including buildings, parking lots, and computers. It contains information about your identity and access privileges. The user inserts the card into the reader and then enters their PIN code. This allows access to whatever the user has need to access. This is multi-factor authentication. Can someone tell me why this would be considered multi-factor authentication? Glenn, go ahead.
As in a smart card, it's not only the reading code that it has, it may very well have your picture on it. It may very well have, like, say, a password that you would have to memorize it. Something like, in other words, it's asking for, that smart card is going to ask for at least 3 parts of something that signifies that it's you. So that this way everybody else could use it at the time.
Yeah, at least 2, because this here you have, well, it's actually 3, you're right. You've got the card and you have to enter, it's 2. You have to enter the PIN code that goes with the card. It's kind of like your ATM cards. So just remember that multi-factor authentication, that's the type of thing. It's something you have in this case, which is the card, and something you know, which is the PIN code. Okay. Right, Jerusalem. Good job. Tokens. Physical tokens are anything that a user must have on them to access network resources and are often associated with devices that enable the user to generate a one-time password authenticating their identity. Hunter, is this what you were talking about yesterday? Something you used?
Something very similar, yes.
Okay. All right. So in your case, what was the process for you logging in with regards to using this token?
So in order to log into any computer, I would have to first enter my password. I would then have to put the little key fob, there's a little USB, I'd have to put it into the side of the computer. I would have to press and hold it in for a certain amount of time, and then it would enter my password again through the fob, and then from there it would let me log on, and then it would automatically log me out after a certain amount of time. And every time I wanted to log back in, I would have to go through this entire process as well. So
Okay.
It was annoying, but I guess it was very secure.
Yeah, that was a very secure form of protection for your network. A way to protect information and protect people having access to those resources. All right. Next, we have the entry control roster. Venkata, will it process a password automatically? I think in the case of the tokens, depending on the make, I believe the password probably rotates. And that's the reason that you have to insert the token every time you have a PIN code, and the password will rotate. So if you don't have the token to insert into the computer, or through maybe a USB, then you probably will not have access, because that password changes every time. It's not the same every time that you use it. Fingerprint scan on a token. I believe that may be possible, Susan. I'm not sure. I've never seen that, but I believe that could be possible, to have it read your fingerprint in order for you to be able to use it. That's a possibility. Entry control roster. At any physical location where users are arriving and departing the facility, users should be authenticated. There should be an entry control roster that shows when each person entered and left the facility. If you go to a lot of companies, generally a lot of tech companies, or where you have to have you're allowed access, they're going to try to track who's coming in and out of the building every day. That's why you'll have to sign in when you come in and sign out later on. And your access and your throughout your day is tracked as well. Wherever you are using your maybe your ID badge or your token, that kind of thing, it tracks where your activities are during the day. The entry control roster is also helpful in case there's an emergency. You can take a look at that to see who is in the building or has left already. In case of an emergency, they'll know in a fire if everybody is out. Not have to worry about going looking for people, because they know whether they're in the building. If they're not accounted for outside, they can look and see if that person had already left for the day, and they won't be going and risking danger trying to find someone who has left for the day already. Right. Privacy filters. Has anyone ever used a privacy filter in their business or work? The bank, Rizal. Okay. Library, DW. Okay. Mom has one on her phone. Very good. Very good. Okay. Privacy filters are either film or glass add-ons that are placed over a monitor that prevent data on the screen from being readable when viewed from the sides. Only the user sitting directly in front of the screen is able to read the data. This is a good mitigation to shoulder surfing. All right. What is shoulder surfing? Go ahead, Jessica.
Information.
When someone's stalking your shoulder, well, to be more direct, when somebody sees you're about to log into your banking statement and they're a little close for comfort, like they're within your box, your personal space, in hopes of trying to capture your information. Correct.
Very good. Yeah, they're trying to see what you're doing, and they may have an opportunity to learn your password or learn your PIN code while you're entering it, while you're accessing one of your accounts. So you got to be very careful of that, especially in public places, but also in your workplace as well, because there may be bad actors within your company that may like to have an opportunity to maybe steal from you or use your computer for something unscrupulous, and then you'll be blamed for it. So that's something to be very careful of. All right. We're going to talk about digital security examples. Okay, again, we want to screenshot this and be sure to learn these different examples. Antivirus, anti-malware software. Application that is installed on a system to protect it and to scan for viruses as well as worms and Trojan horses. Most viruses have characteristics that are common to families of a virus or viruses. Antivirus software looks for these characteristics or fingerprints to identify and neutralize viruses before they can impact the system. Antivirus software manufacturers work hard to keep the definition database files current. The definition database file contains all of the known viruses and countermeasures for a particular antivirus software product. Antivirus are the primary method of preventing the propagation of malicious code. Again, if you have an antivirus program on your computer that you're using, make sure that you have those definitions updated frequently. I tend to do mine I do it every week, depending on where I've been surfing on the web. But sometimes you may have to change that a little bit, but you need to make sure that those definitions are updated frequently. Go ahead, Stephen.
What does propagation mean?
Propagation means that it's the spreading. As the more and more systems that a virus has access to, it'll keep spreading until it is stopped. Okay. And again, also, I mentioned yesterday that make sure that you don't have two different antivirus programs running on your computer, because it won't work. They'll fight with each other and you won't be able to get a thing done on your computer. So be careful of that as well. Go ahead, Glenn.
Windows, particularly for those who have PCs, they have Windows Defender. It has its own firewall. It has its own malware unit. In fact, I remember from the previous course that I used to take, one guy who was on there, and he was really good. He said that you don't need half of all those things that they advertise. That, or Windows Defender does enough.
Yeah, now it does. It used to not be a malware type of deal. It was more so firewall. It was more firewall directed at one point, but I think that it's been changed.
And very basic antivirus too.
Yeah. So I mean, you still may want to. I personally, I do use a different antivirus than the Windows Defender.
Okay.
There are some different ones out there that are pretty good. You just have to do a little bit of research to see which one you feel comfortable with using. As long as you use something, you're fine. But it's like Kelly said, the Windows Defender is kind of basic.
Okay. I have
Okay, go ahead,
ABT.
Joseph. Yeah. Yes, Joseph.
Yes, if I have a McAfee, do I have to download another antivirus?
Please do not.
Don't do that. That's what I'm saying. You don't need to.
Okay, so
Right, don't do that.
And with the McAfee, if mine USB stick is corrupted, can they flush out the viruses?
Ooh, Kelly?
Depends on the type of virus.
Mhm.
Very heavily, because some, like we were talking about yesterday with the different types of viruses, some types, the only way to get rid of them is scorched earth. It's basically wipe everything and start anew. So you can try running the virus scanner on that drive and see what it can do. But I would go into your BIOS first, disable auto run on your USB before you plug it into your computer. Because if there are auto run viruses on that USB, the moment you plug it into your computer, it's going to start infecting your systems.
Yes.
Wait a minute, how do you do that without inserting it into the computer? How do you disable the auto run?
Go into the BIOS first, and in your UEFI or BIOS, you can disable auto run on USB drives in the settings of your BIOS. Then you can plug it in and it shouldn't run anything off of it, and then you can scan that drive.
Yeah, through your antivirus, you could pick the drive that you want to scan, and it would be the USB that you have plugged in, and it would scan it for viruses and take any measures that is able to do, maybe quarantine it, or depending on the type of virus it is, remove it. Okay. But yeah, definitely don't put another one on there if you have McAfee.
Yeah, I got it. I got it. Thank you.
All right. Okay. All right. Firewalls. Firewalls are one of the first lines of defense in a network. There are different types of firewalls, and they can be either standalone systems or included in other devices such as routers or servers. You can find firewall solutions that are marketed as hardware only and others that are software only. Many firewalls, however, consist of add-in software that is available for servers or workstations. The basic purpose of a firewall is to isolate one network from another. Remember that's very important. Basic purpose of a firewall is to isolate one network from another. Firewalls function as one or more of the following: a packet filter, a proxy firewall, or a stateful inspection firewall. Let's see. All right, user authentication and strong passwords. Setting authentication security, especially in supporting users, can become a high maintenance activity for network administrators. DW, go ahead.
Hey, Mark. Sorry, I just wanted to go back up to the firewalls for a second, because the definition that I had in my mind for firewalls was a physical device that filtered communications using like the ADS table. Is that correct? Am I incorrect in thinking that?
I'm not sure.
Or is it ACS? Sorry, ACS was a ACS
Okay.
list.
Yeah, access control. You're talking about ACLs. Okay, access control list. Yes, firewalls. They incorporate those, right, Kelly? We have. You can tell the firewall what programs you want to allow to pass through it and which ones should not.
Yes, well, that's your whitelist or your blacklist. Your whitelist is you only the things on that list are allowed, everything else is denied. And then you have a blacklist where only the stuff on the blacklist is denied, everything else is allowed.
Okay, right.
Administrators tend to prefer using blacklists because they're easier to manage.
Mhm.
Although you do open yourself up a little bit more. Whitelists require a lot more attention because you have to keep adding sites and programs and stuff as you discover it that it's needed. So it's a lot more work to maintain.
Okay, and it can filter like it can filter networks. It can also filter the type of things that you're sending out and the specific data as well, right?
Yes, that's when you're talking about packet filtering.
All right, cool. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, I'll start again. User authentication, strong passwords. Setting authentication security, especially in supporting users, can become a high maintenance activity for network administrators. On one hand, you want people to be able to authenticate themselves easily. On the other hand, you want to establish security that protects your company's resources. In a Windows Server domain, password policies can be configured at the domain level using group policy objects. Variables you can configure include password complexity, length, and time between allowed changes. There are 4 factors of multi-factor authentication. Something you know, which is a username or password, something you have, key fob, keys, or smart card, something you are, which is your biometrics, or somewhere you are, GPS. This is based on where you are. Multi-factor authentication is when more than one of these factors is required to authenticate. All right, VPNs, virtual private network. Virtual private networks are connections, remote access connections that allow users to securely connect to the enterprise network and work as if they were in the office. These connections use special tunneling protocols that encrypt the information being transferred between the user and the corporate network. Data loss prevention, or DLP. Data loss prevention solutions are designed to prevent sensitive material from purposefully or inadvertently escaping the organization. These solutions allow you to specify exactly what actions each user may take with respect to a document. For example, it may allow the document to be read, but neither printed nor forwarded to another user. All right, another security measure, disabling ports. One of the basic principles of security is to reduce the attack surface of all devices. This means shutting off all services and applications that are not required and to close all ports not being used. With respect to switches and hubs, this means disabling any ports that do not have devices connected to them. If this is not done, anyone could walk up to an unused wall outlet, plug in a device, get an IP address through DHCP, and be on your network. Access control lists. Access control lists are sets of rules configured on a router or firewall that control the type of traffic allowed to enter or leave an interface. These lists are what make packet filtering firewalls work. Using these lists, an administrator can at a granular level define who can send specific types of traffic to specific locations. For example, you could prevent a user from using Telnet to connect to the sales server without preventing him from using Telnet to any other devices and without impacting any of his other activities. Do I have any questions? All right.
Yes, I do. I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
All right.
So with the disabling ports, this is, well, everything we're reviewing, these are things that as an IT person, you want to incorporate in your routine maintenance of actions. Like these are things you, like disabling the port aspect. That's part of, like what I'm trying to figure out is with disabling the port aspect, is it that you know there's a problem, so you want to go and check and make sure that there isn't no other back doors where there's a port open? Is that when that will come into play, or is that just a overall initial standpoint you want to take? Like we're not just, if that kind of makes sense. I'm trying to figure out what my question is.
I think I understand what you're wondering is if this is something that you should want to do all of the time, or if you're going to take the initiative to do it. These are security. These are ways to secure your network in a way that the technical term is called hardening. So what you want to do is disable or make it harder for any outsiders to get to your network. Okay, these are digital methods. We just talked about the physical security methods, somebody trying to walk in and get to a computer and physically use it. This is a digital security method, and what that means is, even though they're saying here someone can walk up to a port and just plug into it, they could also use a digital method to where they specify a port that they want to use from outside your network, and they know that that port is open inside your network. They'll be able to
initially walk in.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So these are the digital methods, and yes, these are probably some things that you want to consider. And you know, walking in to a situation, these things are probably already done. With you're just joining a company, but these are some of the things that are done, and these are reasons why.
Gotcha. So these are in place as we're building our network. These are things you want to make sure that you're already having. Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Got anything to add to that, Kelly?
Not currently.
Okay, right. All righty. Anyone else?
Susan had a question in chat. I
Okay,
was
go
kind of
ahead.
curious to the answer.
Okay.
Sorry
You
for putting
had-
you off last, Susan.
Is this your question? Can you have both white and black lists depending on the user? Let's see.
Can you have
here.
both?
I see no.
I'm
So
one
like,
has-
can you not both for a user, but like, can you have both lists, and depending on the user, they can have like whitelist or they have blacklist?
What you may have is like a blacklist for the network, but a whitelist for individual computers.
Okay.
So you could use the firewall on the individual computer to create a whitelist and then create a blacklist for the overall network.
Okay, thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jessica.
Okay, email filtering. Because users are representing the organization in everything they do, you want them to follow certain guidelines. Email filtering allows for the recognition and blocking of messages that contain content that is not compliant with these guidelines. Configuring the filtering solution in such a way that it recognizes and blocks non-compliant emails while leaving compliant emails unaffected can be a tremendous challenge. So if you have your spam filter, sometimes your spam filter grabs stuff that it shouldn't grab. So if you're missing an email from someone important, be sure that you check your spam filter because it may have been directed there inadvertently. Trusted and untrusted software sources. While policies should definitely reflect the desire of the organization to prevent unauthorized software downloads and installation, you may have to go beyond policies and implement a software restriction tool that prevents users from doing this. If you want to prevent all downloads and installations by users, you can use a group policy in Windows to require administration privileges to do any downloading or installing. Okay. User education and acceptable use policy. User education is the most effective method of preventing viruses, spyware, and harm to data. Teach users not to open suspicious files and to open only those files that are reasonably sure are virus-free. Need to scan every disk, email, and document they receive before they open them. You should also have a workstation scheduled to be automatically scanned on a regular basis. Education is important. In most cases, you must attempt to control what users do. An acceptable use policy is a document that specifies what users can and cannot do. It should be signed by all during the hiring process. This creates a contract that can be used later to form the basis for disciplinary measures. These measures or consequences for non-compliance should be spelled out ahead of time. All right, client responsibility in preventative security. Okay, we've got the passwords, logins, and other. Do you want to change your password according to the company's password policy? Use a company established minimum character password that is unique for each account. Never write your passwords down. Never share your password or your login session with another person. Logins, never walk away from a logged on workstation. Lock down your PC. Shortcut on Windows as Windows key plus L or Control Alt Delete and click lock this PC. Employ a password protected screensaver. Don't use auto log on features. Be aware of who is around you when you log in. Other preventative measures are allow all approved updates and patches to be installed onto your PC. Back up any personal data onto verified removable media. Never leave a company notebook or phone where it can be stolen or compromised. Okay. Principle of least privilege. This is very important. When assigning permissions, give users only the permissions they need to do their work and no more. This is especially true with administrators. Users who need administrative level permission should be assigned 2 accounts. One for performing non-administrative day-to-day tasks, and one to be used only when performing administrative tasks that specifically require an administrative level user account. Users with administrative level permission should be educated on how each of the accounts should be used. Remember one thing. Yes, that's true. You should make sure that if you walk away from your computer in your workplace, make sure that you lock it, or you so that no one can use a computer while you're not there. Yes, Jessica.
Could you explain a little bit more when you say that for the administrators, they'll have 2 accounts set up? What does that look like? So like when you log in, you know, typically your username is already there and you put in your information. So they'll have 2 accounts like that where one would give, where if they log into this user administrative account, like how would they be able to decipher the 2?
Well, it's kind of like that's what you would do. Well, not saying that you have done it, but you should probably do the same thing on your personal computer. So I'll explain it from that aspect. You should have, if it's your computer, you're pretty much designated as the administrator for your computer. That's your account you log into every day. What you should do is make another account. Leave one account as administrator and use another account that does not have administrative privileges. And what I mean by doing that is that if something happens, if you're in your administration login and something happens, you download something or someone attacks your computer, if they have cracks your administrative login, they have administrative rights on your computer, so they can do a lot of damage there. But if you're logged in and you're doing something on your less than admin account, they would not have the same access to resources on your computer as they would as the administrator.
Gotcha.
that's
They
primarily
get
what
that
this
much
is.
more firepower with the admin. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Jerusalem, administrative tasks can be payroll, employee schedules, employees, employee information. Yes, probably have access to those types of things, as well as being able to change access. And that's the important part. That's kind of what a hacker or someone else wants to be able to do, is to be able to have open access to your network to do what they want to do with it. All right. I do believe that is the last slide, guys. Okay.
Nice.
Does anyone have any questions? Other questions? All right.
You know, I do believe we have enough time for a mini mock before lunch.
Wow. Special. Hey.
Kelly, I just want to share with you that all my friends and family, they be like, who is this Kelly person? I was like, that is my best friend and my worst enemy.
It's like one minute you're singing their praises and the next minute you're cursing them.
It's like, Kelly, are you friends or not, man? Are we friends or not? Make up your mind. But I'll take it on, Kelly. I'll take it on.
Well, it does pay off in the end. The more experience you have with it. The nice thing about the mini mocks is it should have explanations as to why the ones you got wrong were wrong. So it does give you a little bit more detailed upon completion. So while I'm working on that, Mark, can you create
Breakouts.
breakouts, please, sir?
Sure. Okay.
If we can get through this afternoon session pretty timely manner, we will just do asynchronous work rather than a mock bonus.
That would be most helpful.
Yes.
That would be most helpful.
But after was it UCD, run G. After next week, we start falling into about 2 tests a day plus guided study groups between. And we start ratcheting back the time on the 1001s to get them closer to a testing pace.
2 full mocks a day?
Not 2 full mocks, no.
Oh,
We would alternate. I would do like 1 full, 1 mini a day. So like Monday, you would do a full, let me stop recording here.